there comes a moment, quiet, imperceptible, but seismic, when the walls of what we assumed was reality begin to shimmer. It is not unlike watching a film when the projector stutters, and suddenly you notice the screen, the light, the illusion all at once. In that fracture, something deeper emerges. The comfortable silence of conformity is interrupted by a question that was always there, whispering beneath the noise. Whose thoughts are these? This question does not echo from the lips of philosophers alone. It bleeds from the corners of your own daily experience, seeps in through the static of screens and headlines, and stirs beneath your every decision. The Matrix, so to speak, is not simply a cinematic invention or philosophical metaphor. It is the architecture of your mental captivity, and perhaps, until now, you didn't even realize you were dreaming someone else's dream. To break the Matrix is not merely to reject the digital world, or to unshackle oneself from devices or systems. It is to unravel the weavings of your identity, the story you've been taught to tell yourself, thread by thread. This Matrix is subtler, more invasive. It is a lattice of borrowed beliefs, inherited perceptions, and silently implanted preferences. You did not build the structure. You were born into it. But what if you could see it? What if, through some crack in the veil, the invisible bars began to glow faintly, and with them a pathway out? Imagine a world made of glass. Every surface transparent, every wall unseen. You would not know you were contained until you walked into something you couldn't pass through. That's the trick, you see. The truest prisons are invisible. The thickest chains are thought forms accepted as truth. This is the sacred paradox, that the mind, our most potent source of liberation, has been reprogrammed to serve as the warden. When your mind is no longer yours, when your inner compass has been magnetized by algorithms, tribal identities, fear-based narratives, or the soothing lullabies of consumerism, you do not need a tyrant. You carry the cage within you. The first step toward liberation is not escape, but awareness. Like waking from a lucid dream where your hands finally pass through the illusionary wall. The breaking of the Matrix begins in the quiet realization that your thoughts have been subtly colonized. And no, this is not the paranoid fantasy of a fringe philosopher. This is the lived condition of the modern psyche. From childhood, the world assigns you templates, names, roles, expectations, archetypes. Your dreams are prepackaged, your ambitions algorithmically predicted, your attention parsed and sold. You are not broken, but you have been bent, curved to fit a mold shaped by invisible architects. And yet, within this haunting observation lies the ember of something luminous, the knowing that something more is possible. This isn't about rejecting society or demonizing progress. It's about remembering your original agency. Beneath the cluttered noise of ideologies and screens, there pulses an ancient current, one that whispers of wholeness, of sovereignty, of the breathtaking possibility that your mind could once again become your own. Not by retreating into fantasy, but by stepping with awareness into the jungle of reality, machete in hand, and cutting through the vines of illusion. What does it mean to reclaim your mind in an age where minds are mined, where identity is traded like currency, and reality itself is curated by invisible algorithms? It means becoming a conscious architect. It means remembering that behind your eyes is not just a processor, but a soul with access to the infinite. It means stepping into the role of observer and creator simultaneously, watching the world while reweaving it with intention. This journey is not quick, nor is it always comfortable, but it is sacred. It is revolutionary. It is the path of the awakening human who dares to say, no more. I choose to see. This exploration, breaking the Matrix, your mind is not yours anymore, is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is a descent into the deep caverns of symbolic thought, mythic reflection, and raw awareness. It is a re-entry into the hidden systems that govern not only culture, but consciousness itself. And from that descent, we will rise one realization at a time toward a sovereignty that cannot be programmed, bought, or borrowed. A sovereignty that is your birthright. The Matrix is not just out there, it is also within. And thus, the revolution begins not with the collapse of external towers, but with the gentle, seismic reclaiming of your own inner citadel. To understand the Matrix is to first realize it wears many names. It is the cultural script whispered into your ears before you even knew what choice meant. It is the looping mantra of status, success, safety, and belonging, rhythms repeated until they replace your own heartbeat. You do not merely live in the Matrix, you become entangled in it. It shapes your very sense of self, like a sculptor carving identity from the clay of conditioning. But this Matrix is not simply political or technological, it is metaphysical. It is the distortion field that hovers between what is and what is believed. The core themes of this Matrix-busting revelation center not around rebellion, but reawakening. It is not about escaping the system, but remembering the self that was hidden underneath it. At its heart lies the illusion of separateness. The mind, when colonized, begins to fracture reality into compartments. Me versus them, success versus failure, good versus evil, worthy versus unworthy. These dichotomies form the bedrock of false identity, encouraging you to see through lenses instead of with eyes. The Matrix needs you to believe in these false polarities. It thrives when your attention is divided, when your energy is dispersed, when your soul is hypnotized into mistaking the echo for the origin. This is why the Matrix never attacks your body, it seduces your mind. And when the mind is lured into binary illusions, your perception of wholeness fractures like a mirror shattered into forgetful shards. Another pillar of this silent architecture is the worship of the external. You are taught subtly and persistently to outsource authority. From birth, you are conditioned to seek validation from institutions, approval from others, and truth from curated information flows. But in doing so, you begin to exile your own inner compass. Your intuition, the very lighthouse of your soul, is muffled under layers of performance, doubt, and distraction. The more you reach outward, the further you drift inwardly. This is no accident. It is by design. The Matrix doesn't want you still. In stillness, truth emerges. But the system prefers noise, a constant humming, a psychic buzz that keeps the waters of awareness turbulent. And so you are given an infinite scroll of content, opinions dressed as facts, and desires engineered to keep you always wanting. The attention economy does not want your peace. It wants your participation. You are fed stories that keep you clicking, craving, comparing. And what is comparison, if not a tool to keep you discontent with yourself? This brings us to the theme of self-abandonment, the most insidious consequence of the mental hijacking. You are taught to mistrust your own inner voice. Doubt becomes your native language. The systems of influence are not merely technological, they are energetic. They prey on your insecurity and cultivate a lifelong dependence on the opinions of others. Every platform, every social norm, every viral message reinforces the idea that your worth is contingent upon reflection, not realization. But true awakening begins when you no longer seek to be mirrored, but to be real. There is also the illusion of permanence. You are lulled into the belief that reality is fixed, that things must be the way they are. But what if reality itself is a malleable field, and consciousness the sculptor? The Matrix feeds you stories that reinforce rigidity. This is how life works, this is what's possible, this is who you are. But these are not laws. They are agreements, and you, as a sovereign being, have the power to renegotiate them at any moment. Another layer emerges when we consider the commodification of identity. Your preferences, dreams, fears, they've become data points. A profile sold to the highest bidder. But what happens when your psyche becomes a marketplace? You become predictable. You become controllable. Not through force, but through gentle nudges that feel like your own thoughts. The digital matrix isn't just surveillance. It's simulation. A simulation so seamless that you begin to mistake customization for freedom. But true freedom doesn't pander, it liberates. It disrupts. It reminds you that you are not here to fit in, you are here to remember. And perhaps the most important theme, the loss of sacredness. The Matrix despiritualizes everything. It turns wonder into content, transcendence into trend, wisdom into consumption. It makes the infinite bite-sized, the mysterious marketable. But beneath this numbing spectacle is the quiet echo of the soul. And the soul does not speak in trends. It speaks in stillness, in symbols, in synchronicity. When you begin to wake from the matrix, the ordinary becomes enchanted again. You begin to see the universe not as random, but as woven with meaning. You remember that you are not a machine, but a mystery. Breaking the matrix, then, is not an act of rebellion, it is an act of remembrance. It is peeling away the illusions, one by one, until what remains is something raw and radiant and real. It is looking in the mirror and seeing not the reflection the world sold you, but the essence you forgot. There are truths the rational mind cannot carry. Truths so vast, they must be draped in the velvet robes of symbols, parables, and myth. These stories are not merely entertainment. They are coded maps from the subconscious, speaking in the language of archetype and metaphor. If the matrix is a veil of illusion spun with the threads of language and belief, then symbols are the knife that cuts through its weave. And to break the matrix, we must enter the mythic, the poetic, the soul-rich terrain where logic softens and meaning deepens. For it is in story that the sleeper awakens. Let us begin with the tale of the Mirror Oracle. Long ago, in a time when people still remembered how to speak with the stars, there stood a temple hidden in the mist of the mind. Within it, a mirror, round as the moon and cold as silence. Pilgrims came from all lands to ask it questions, believing it to show the truth. But the mirror had a secret. It did not reflect what was real. It reflected what the seeker expected to see. Kings saw power. Beggars saw shame. Lovers saw loss. Few saw themselves. One day, a child approached, eyes wide, mind unshaped by the world. She asked the mirror, "What am I?" And the mirror turned black. Then it turned into a river, then a star, then it vanished. The child smiled. She had not seen herself. She had become something else. She left the temple without a word, never needing answers again. This is the soul's riddle. So long as you seek identity in reflection, you remain bound to illusion. The matrix survives because it is made of mirrors. Everything you engage with reflects back a version of you the world has crafted. But the real self, the unnameable essence, cannot be caught in glass. It must be lived, not seen. The Mirror Oracle teaches that to break free, one must stop asking what they are and start being. There is also the allegory of the puppeteer and the strings. In this ancient fable, a traveler climbs a mountain to meet a mystic known only as the Untethered One. She has heard that he knows how to escape the unseen puppet master who controls all people's thoughts. After many days, she finds the old man seated beneath a tree, eyes closed, smiling. "Teach me how to cut the strings," she says. He opens one eye. "You are already free," he replies. "But you believe in the strings." She grows frustrated. "I feel them, pulling me, making me doubt, making me conform." The old man nods. "Yes, but feeling is not proof. It is belief. You do not need to cut the strings, you need to stop dancing for them." That she weeps, not from sadness but from release. The puppeteer is the personification of all unseen influence. The media, the ancestral trauma, the social programming, the quiet tyranny of expectation. But the strings are made of thought, thin, insubstantial. The dance continues only so long as the dancer believes in the hands that hold the strings. In truth, the puppet is the puppeteer. The prison is made from within. And then we come to the myth of the City of Sleep. A luminous metropolis, perfect in its symmetry, forever humming with soft blue light. The people there never knew suffering, never knew hunger, never knew chaos. But there was one rule: never ask what lies beyond the wall. If you ask, you are sent away. Most obeyed. But a poet, restless and curious, one night asked the forbidden question. He was cast out, left to wander a wild and trembling land. But in that wilderness, he discovered something astounding. He felt cold, hunger, joy, terror, real emotions, raw and unfiltered. He wept for the pain, but he rejoiced in its sharpness. Eventually, he sang songs the city could never understand, because his soul had cracked open and grown wildflowers where fear once bloomed. The city of sleep is the smooth comfort of unthinking conformity. It is the sterile paradise offered by the Matrix, a life free from friction, but also from depth. It is what happens when safety becomes a cage, and numbness is sold as peace. To ask what lies beyond is the first act of awakening, and to accept the wilderness of feeling, that is true liberation. These symbolic stories are not fables of old. They are playing out now within you. You are the child before the mirror, the traveler beneath the tree, the poet exiled from comfort. And the thread that connects them all is the willingness to see differently. Not with the eyes conditioned by culture, but with the deeper sight that lives behind the eyes, the inner gaze that cuts through illusions like moonlight on water. The Matrix cannot survive a mythically literate mind. For one who knows symbols becomes a lucid dreamer, no longer seduced by the surface. And when you read the world not as a static object, but as a living story, you begin to co-write it. You cease being a character and become a co-creator. The Matrix shivers in the presence of the awakened artist of reality. Because in myth, in metaphor, in meaning, you have stepped out of its reach. The stories we've woven, the metaphors we've summoned, the illusions we've exposed, they're not just poetry in motion. They are a compass, a blade, a mirror. But unless we bring them down from the clouds and press them gently into the soil of our everyday lives, they risk becoming myth without marrow. To truly break the Matrix is not to simply understand it. It is to live differently because of it. The path from revelation to realization runs not through ideology, but through presence, through action, through choice again and again. Begin with your attention, for this is the currency of reality. The Matrix is a grand casino of distractions, and every scroll, every click, every automatic reaction is a silent agreement to its terms. But when you pull your awareness back, when you unplug from the ambient noise and sit in silence, you reclaim your sovereignty. A single moment of true stillness is more revolutionary than 1,000 arguments. You begin to see how often you have lived from automation, not authenticity. It's like realizing you've been wearing someone else's voice as your own. And so, your first step out of the Matrix is not dramatic. It's intimate. It is saying no to what once defined you. No to the endless commentary loop inside your head. No to measuring your worth in followers or achievements. No to inherited definitions of happiness. These refusals are not passive. They are fierce, radical acts of remembrance. Because in each one, you clear a little more fog from the window of your soul. The practical world begins to shift when you stop participating in falsehoods. This doesn't require confrontation or withdrawal, but clarity. For instance, when you speak, do you speak from truth or from performance? When you choose, do you choose from intuition or obligation? Even the smallest daily act, drinking water, walking down a hallway, writing a message, can be done from Matrix mode or soul mode. The outer world may not see the difference, but your body will. Your nervous system will. Your energy will change. And slowly, the world will respond. What happens when you leave the algorithms of attention behind? You begin to notice things. The way light spills across your hand. The music hidden in traffic. The texture of someone's voice when they speak without a mask. Presence is not a spiritual luxury. It is a psychic rebellion. The world wants you numb, busy, distracted. But when you are truly here, you become harder to manipulate. You can feel the lie in your bones. You can see the patterns unfolding in people's words, in your own thoughts, in the very architecture of culture. And when you start seeing the code, you can start rewriting it. This doesn't mean you abandon society. It means you begin to bend it. Quietly, subtly. You might raise children who are taught to trust their inner knowing. You might create art that doesn't feed the machine, but frees the viewer. You might work in a system while refusing to internalize its sickness. You do not have to live off-grid to be off-script. This matrix is not a place. It is a pattern, and breaking it means unlearning the reflexes it planted in you. The reflex to self-edit, to self-censor, to shrink. It means remembering that your mind is not a container, but a conduit. You are not here to repeat thoughts, you are here to source them. The world changes when people stop parroting the echo and start channeling the origin. But beware, The matrix is seductive. It doesn't come to you in chains, it comes as comfort, as convenience, as consensus. So every time you feel yourself nodding along, pause. Ask yourself, is this my truth or a truth I've been handed? This is not paranoia, it is discernment. A skill honed not through fear, but through reverence. Because your mind is sacred territory, and sacred territory must be defended not with weapons, but with attention. And yet, this path is not lonely. For once you start walking it, others appear. You will begin to recognize those who are also breaking the spell. Their eyes will meet yours with quiet knowing. They will speak not of escape, but of embodiment. They too are building a world behind the world. A silent revolution of presence, meaning, and intention. In practical terms, this means cultivating disciplines that rewire your mind for freedom. Meditation that cleans the lens. Journaling that deprograms the narrative. Conversations that deepen, not distract. Creation that comes not from validation, but from vision. Every act of intention is a thread pulled from the matrix's tapestry. And with enough threads pulled, the whole illusion unravels. Breaking the matrix is not a single thunderclap moment. It is 1,000 daily whispers saying, I remember who I am. It is choosing to walk barefoot on the pathless land of the real, rather than gliding comfortably through the conveyor belt of the known. And while the real world may be messier, more uncertain, less optimized, it is alive. And life, in its raw, unscripted form, is the final rebellion. The journey we have taken, through the shimmering portals of introduction, the deep wells of core ideas, the allegorical shadows of symbol, and finally the tangible footsteps of practical life, has been an unfolding invitation to rediscover something profoundly hidden yet always present, the true sovereignty of your own mind. Breaking the matrix, your mind is not yours anymore, is not just a phrase. It is a declaration of war against a subtle tyranny, an awakening to the vastness within that has been quietly colonized by unseen forces. And yet, it is not a war fought with anger, but with clarity. Not a breaking that shatters, but a breaking open, like the dawn peeling back the night sky. Imagine your mind as a vast, star-studded cosmos. For ages, it has been veiled by clouds of conditioning, illusions dense as nebulae, shadowing the radiant galaxies beneath. The matrix is this fog, a shifting mist that distorts perception, bending light, hiding the true form of your essence. To break free is to step beyond the mirage, to walk into the clear cosmic expanse where your mind is no longer a puppet on strings, but a celestial navigator charting its own course. This is not an escape into fantasy, but a grounded, fierce return to reality, stripped of distortions, layered with meaning, vibrant with your own creative power. To live after breaking the matrix is to live as a radiant paradox, fully immersed in the world yet untouched by its illusions, deeply connected yet fiercely independent. It is a state of lucid dreaming, where you understand the dream but choose to dance within it, shaping it with intention rather than habit. The call to transformation is both ancient and urgent. It asks you to become the alchemist of your own consciousness, to transmute the leaden weight of programmed thought into the gold of awakening. This is not a path for the faint-hearted, for it asks you to unlearn certainty, to dissolve false identities, to embrace vulnerability as strength. But in this alchemical fire, something new is born, a mind luminous and free, a soul unfettered by the confines of inherited narrative. You are invited now to take this call seriously, not as a distant theory, but as a living mandate. Look within and ask, where have I surrendered my mind? Where have I accepted the mirror's reflection instead of becoming the river? Where have I danced for the puppeteer, forgetting I hold the scissors? The answers will come, not as thunderous revelations, but as quiet stirrings beneath the surface of awareness. And then, with these stirrings, act. Begin where you are. Break one small string, shift one habitual thought, reclaim one moment of your attention. Build a sanctuary in your daily life where the matrix's hum is muted, and your own voice rings clear. Seek out others who walk this path not for validation but for communion. Together, you form a constellation, individual stars burning brighter because they reflect each other's light. Remember that breaking the matrix is not a finish line but a threshold. Beyond it lies a new mode of being, a continuous unfolding where freedom is not a static prize but a dynamic dance. You will face resistance, both from within and without. The mind that has been programmed will resist its own liberation. Society invested in conformity will push back. Yet this resistance is a sign of progress. The very force that tries to hold you signals you have grown beyond it. As you step beyond this matrix, your life becomes a luminous testament to what is possible. You begin to see your thoughts not as chains, but as clouds passing through a boundless sky. You hold the paradox of knowing and unknowing, form and formlessness, certainty and mystery. You live as a being who is no longer taken, but takes with grace, with courage, with deep and unshakable presence. In the final reckoning, breaking the matrix is not about reclaiming something lost. It is about remembering something eternal. Your mind was never truly owned by another. It was only borrowed, clouded, veiled. Now the veils can be lifted. The mirrors can be shattered, not into shards of confusion, but into prisms of insight. The puppeteer revealed as a phantom of your own making, dissolving in the light of awareness. The cosmic dance continues, and you are no longer a passive participant. You are the dancer, the music, the space between notes. To break the matrix is to become the infinite architect of your own mind, the sacred witness to a universe reborn within. Step boldly, then, into this truth. For in breaking the matrix, you do not lose yourself. You finally find the mind that was always yours, waiting in the quiet brilliance beyond illusion.